Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Jay here, and I'm really excited to get into today's video because for some reason I'm feeling good and I really want to get this out for you guys because it is a very useful feature. Now, before we begin, a few things. One, I want to say that if you find this content helpful, please do me a huge solid and like this video, leave a comment on what you'd like to see more of, and subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to hit 50 subscribers and I would really appreciate your support. And if you are a business and you need software automation done, go ahead and check out my company, Riseware, at riseware.com, and we'll see if we can sort you out. So now to get into the video, we are going to piggyback on what we did yesterday when we learned about branches. We're going to start off by creating a branch and, oops, we're going to call it themes. Now, if you don't know about branches, make sure you go watch the previous video because it's a super helpful feature and you actually need to know about it if you're going to build good web apps because it really saves your donkey. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go ahead and watch the other video. The card will be somewhere in the top. Anyways, so when we open our Nordcraft project, we can come over here into the files little folder here, and we can come down to themes and we can go ahead and click on default. Now, what this is and what this is used for is, for one, it is some predefined things that Nordcraft gives you just to be helpful. You know, we have a few colors as well as a default font and some font sizes, some font weights, so on and so forth. Now, when you are designing, typically you are using some sort of design system, like you're saying, okay, these are what all my H1s are going to look like. These are what all my H2s are going to look like. These are what my buttons look like. These are what my container sizes are going to be, so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and take a little quick example of that. This was a little project I did via live stream, and as you can see here on the right side, this is Figma, by the way. If you don't know what it is, it's a software that you can use to wireframe and design websites and such, much more. But you see on this right side here, I have a few things defined, like being like the paragraph size, as well as the colors that I'm using, and so on and so forth, and even have what size the container should be, which is with this containers grid right here. So when you have things defined like this in your design, typically you want to have things be consistent, like your H1 and so on and so forth. Now, you can do that already just with components. Like you could just come into Nordcraft and just change everything on your H1 component if you have one. You definitely could. But if you want to just stretch that a little bit further in terms of having everything in sort of a central place, your entire design system in a central place, that's really where themes come into play here. So for example, if we look back at my Figma design, I have a few colors to represent my brand. We have a knight, a primary, a white, and a light knight. I just couldn't figure out a name for it, so I apologize. Can't make that any bigger for you, I don't think so. So I apologize if you can't really read it. But let's say, for example, I want to take these colors and these styles and such, and I want to put it here in Nordcraft in the theme section. The reason I would do that is because I will be using this throughout the entire site, and you kind of want just one central place to manage things like that. So let's start with the colors. For one, let's start with my sort of like brand colors, I guess you can kind of say. So what I would do, here we are in the colors section, and I'm going to do add a group, and I'm going to name it brand. This is typically what I do. And this is where I would store all the colors that have to deal with the specific brand that this web application is for. So, for example, one that I do pretty much every single time is brand dash primary, and that's going to be whatever is the primary color for that brand. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that here. Now I'm going to do the same for the rest of these. So we'll go ahead and we'll get the night color. We'll add a new color here, brand night, and I'll go ahead and paste that. And I won't grab white because we already have a white in here somewhere. And then let's go ahead and add, what was this? The light night. I'm gonna keep it as this, the light night. We'll change that color as well. Okay. So it looks like we have our brand colors in there. Then we have things like text colors. So let me get this default one. Now for this, you can add a new group, and I could probably say something like, I guess, text. And then we can add a color in here. That's the default. Then I'll add there, as well as we'll add another one for that highlight one that I have highlight. And I go ahead and copy that hex code and bring that over like so. Okay, so we now have our colors in here, and now we can use these colors. Let's go ahead and see how we can use them. So if you don't already, I have a app provider in every single one of my applications that goes on every single page of said application. So anything to do color-wise with the page and the text, I typically set here. So what I would do, right, to use these colors, I'm going to say that every page should have this night color. As you can see on every single page so far, at least I'm using this night color. So if I come down to background now and I remove this, now this has changed recently since, I believe since Total became Nordcraft, that they changed this, or maybe a little bit after, but there used to be a star here, and that's how you would typically connect your variables. So like the things that are in the theme section, but that's no longer here, at least for now. Hopefully they bring it back. I do hope. So to get those, just erase whatever value is here, and then typically you will have the pop-up for all the colors and variables that are in the themes. And if you don't see it, go ahead and press the down arrow, and you should be able to see it that way as well. So here I can say that I want to get that brand and night color. Now, on any page in my application that uses this, so let's say we go to the home page, you already see that we have that dark color, the dark brand and night color. Now this will be on every single page unless I explicitly change it, but that will be on every single page by default. Now, say this text right here, the H1, maybe if you remember, we have this text default color. Maybe I want them all to be that text default color, or maybe a text highlight color. That might make more sense since they're in H1. You can kind of see the difference here with the default versus the highlight. So maybe all H1s should have the highlight color, right? So I could come into here and I can go to my H1s, and here I can, in the text area, instead of inherit, I can erase that and I can do the text. Oops, I did not mean to open that. My apologies. And I can do the text default, right? So now all my H1s will have that default color now. Oh, I guess I was supposed to do highlight. My apologies. Text highlight. There we go. So now, let's say, no, I want to change that color. We can go ahead and instead of, oh, well, let me say, suppose we had this on all headings, right? So suppose I go to my H2 as well, and we also have that text highlight color, right? Now say, okay, I'm no longer happy with that text highlight color. I want to change them all. Well, if I didn't use the themes section, I would have to go every single place that I'm using it in every single component and change the color. But with themes, I don't have to. All I have to do is come back into themes, find wherever the text highlight color is, and I can just make this whatever color. What if I wanted to make it some pink or something like that? Now, if we go back to the home page, you'll now see that the text is pink. So this is a way to manage all the common colors, all the common sizes, all the common like fonts and such like that that you will have throughout your entire application. So we just did one for color. Let's do an example for spacing. So it doesn't have to literally be spacing. Like when I say spacing, I mean it's like in terms of how things are spaced apart. This can be anything size related. I'll show you what I mean by that. Because typically what I would have in my spacing variables, I would typically have a few defaults. It's like for one, I'd have like size and then 16, which would be 1 rem. Because if you don't know, 16 pixels is equal to 1 rem, or every 16 pixels is a rem, basically, yeah. So then if I did size 32, that'll be 2 rem. I'm only going to go up to 4 here. So size 48 is 3 rem, and size 64, I can type 64 is 4 rem. So these are just very common sizes that I will use throughout my application. And I typically also have ones for like my container. So as you can see here, I actually have 3 container sizes here. As you can see here, we have one, this small one, which is a max of 800 or so width. Then we have this sort of default one at 1102. And then we have this large one at 1664, right? So maybe I want to also use these sizes throughout the application. So I might grab these, and I'm going to get a little calculator. I'll do the over here so you can actually see it. I'll paste that value and I will divide it by 16 to get whatever the rem value is. And I'm going to copy that, bring that over here into Nordcraft. And let's say, since this has to deal with containers and this is my small one, I'll say like container small and then like so. Then we can do the same for the rest of them. So here is the default. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy that value. I'm going to come back here into spacing and I'm going to do like container default, something like so. And we'll do one more for the large. That was 1664 divided by, that's 104. Okay, and we'll do container large. There we go. So now I can use these sizes throughout my entire application. So for example, my container component, I could come in here and I can say, okay, well, I have 3 different sizes, so I'm going to need a size attribute, right? Let's say for right now, it's small. And I can say on that container, I have the 2 classes. We have the large, and that is if size equals large. And then we also have the small, and that is if size equals small, or SM. Okay. Now here in the classes, I can then come over to style. I can grab that large style, and I can say that the, I believe it was the width that I said. Which one was it? No, max width. Max width is going to be that container large, and then do the same thing for small here, and say that the max width for that is going to be container small. Okay, so now let's see this in actual use. So now, in the home page, I will go ahead and wrap this H1 in the container. So wrap an element, and I'll grab container. And I'll make this bigger so you can actually see where the container stops. So now here, I can do is I can come over here to attributes and I can say, okay, well, I want this to be the small container. And you see that that brought it down to small. And then I can also say the large container. Oh, yeah, that's default. And then this is the large. There we go. So that we can change sizes. And if I ever, now imagine I'm using this in a lot of places for different things, I would have to go and change them everywhere. But I don't have to do that since I'm using themes. So I can just come here to themes and just change whatever the small container, the default, or the large is. Okay. So that's one example using a container I also have one for content. I have a container, oh, sorry, I have a content component. And all this does is it just spaces out content. So, like if I have a button here, it's automatically, I believe it's set to 1 rem. Content padding, yeah, set to 1 rem, right? I can change this to whatever I want. I could have a specific spacing for it. So say content spacing and default, something like that, and have that be 1 rem. I can come over to the content and then I can set that content spacing default like so. So now by default, everything in this UI content will be spaced out by 1 rem. Now say I want to change this everywhere, I could then just come to my themes and say I want this to be like 6 rem. You see, now we have much bigger spacing between the two, and we only have to change it one place instead of multiple. Okay, so that's your example for spacing. Now, for fonts, currently, I believe, and I could be incorrect on this, but I believe Nordcraft only supports Google fonts. So any font that you find on Google should be supported here at fonts.google.com. So this is where you would change that. So by default, it looks like we have sans here. I thought it was enter as default, but it looks like we have sans here. So say I want to do, let's see what's most popular right now. Let's go with, I guess, open sans, right? So what I can do here is I can go to add font, type in open sans, and I can click it to add it, and you now see that it added it to the font. Now I can use this throughout my entire application. So now say I want all my text to be this open sans. All I have to do is go to my app provider, because remember, this wraps every single page of the application. And I'm going to say that the font for this is that open sans. So now everything here will have the open sans. I guess I should do something that's more noticeable. Um, let's do, I guess we'll just do this traditional Chinese, just why not? Definitely be noticeable. Let's go back down here to fonts and I'll do traditional. Oh, well, okay, maybe not all the fonts on Google you can get. I just wanted one that would be. Poppins does not look like that. What is going on there? Exile, is that one that we can get? Exile, there it is. Okay, that'll definitely be noticeable. Okay, we added Exile, so let's go ahead and come over here to the app provider. I'm going to go over here to font, and I'll add Exile. And then now if we go back to our home page, you can now see that it updated that font there. So that's how we can import fonts with the themes. See if there's anything else that we have to go over here. So font sizes, it's pretty much the same thing as the spacing up here. What I would typically do is, instead of doing this 5XL, because really I don't even know what that means most of the time, like what value is 5XL, I typically don't know. So I would change this to whatever the heading element is. So for example, font size H1, then I would find whatever my H1 font size is, which is 96, which I think in rem that is 6. 96 divided by 16. Yep, that is 6. So now I will say here that this will be 6 rem. So then I could go to wherever my H1 is, and I can put that size here, font size and H1. And then if we go back to the home page, there you can see that changed our font size. So that is Nordcraft themes in a nutshell. just think of it as whatever design system you have, you just kind of want to bring it over to make things a lot more easier to manage so you don't have to change multiple things. You can just come to this sort of one center of truth or one source of truth and change everything you need to change. So, for example, if we wanted to change everything back, so instead of this pink color, we go back to themes and we find wherever our text highlight color is. And let me grab my text highlight color. I'll grab that, paste that there. And then what else did I change? It was a font, right? So that for that, I have to go to the app provider and change my font to get rid of Excel. And we'll do Open Sans, I guess. Now, if we go back to homepage, you'll now see that everything looks, well, kind of like how it was. So that is how themes work in Nordcraft. Now, again, kind of piggybacking off our previous video, once you're happy with this, go ahead and go to view changes to view the changes that you made in this theme. As you can see, we changed a few things, and we can leave a comment saying like we updated our themes to match the brand or something like that, and then publish that. And there you successfully not only manage your themes, but you also used branches. So ladies and gentlemen, that'll be all for today's video. Again, if you found this helpful, please leave a like and comment on what you'd like to see more and subscribe to the channel for more. And again, if you are a business and you need software or automation done for you, go ahead and find me over at riseware.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time and happy building.